All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Anna Chaos Art Studio. And today, I'm actually really looking forward to this because I really love watercolor, and I am going to finally try the watercolor marker sets. I have never seen these before. I'm pretty sure they've been around for a while, but I used to do a lot of traditional media when I was a kid in the 90s, and then in the 2000s when I was going to art college. And then once I graduated from my animation degree, I mostly shifted to digital format, not because I didn't like doing the traditional stuff. It was mostly because I lived in small apartments. I had to constantly move because of financial circumstances. So the concept of owning a large plethora of or a large amount of art supplies kind of escaped me. So most of what I did is I mostly made sure I had a good working computer with a Wacom tablet, and I was able to move around with that, and that's how I continued to make my art along with my some basic sketchbook stuff. Hey Meow Meow, see you in the background. What you doing? Oh, she's playing. Look, she is playing back there. Hey, what you doing? Meow. Anyway, so so now that I'm a little bit more established, I'm still done by. I mean, literally, most of my entire art supplies fit in like three shelves in like a what's called a like the towel closet. I can't remember what it's called right now. Good lord! But it's mostly that drawer right there. That's pretty much all of my art supplies next to my literally my workstation and what I have right here. So yeah, so I am actually looking forward to testing these out, see how they turned out. So that's gonna be awesome. And but yeah, let's take a peek. Let's take a peek. I can't wait for this. Okay. So, as I mentioned, as I've shown you guys before, I actually got these at Five Below like about a week or so ago, and I thought it was one single set when it actually was two separate sets. Okay, this is more pastels, and it says right there pastels, and these right here are your primaries. So you have a combination of both of these. And what's really nice about this is like back here it actually shows you what it comes with. So it has like a little 3mm brush, a 10mm brush, and a 5mm brush. Okay, so this right here shows you what each one of these exactly do. So these two up here are the markers themselves, and then this is what the actual water brush does on top of that. So today I really want to test these colors out. Let's take a look. I'm so excited. So let's start with the primary set first. Oh, it's got the little tape and stuff of this. Unboxing! Whoa! Stick a peek. Oh, ooh, okay. That's what we got right there. So these are your primaries. Okay, now I want to take a look at what we got here. Oh, these are very boxy. So just for comparison, so these are practically mimicking the Copics. So this right here is an actual Copic. See right there? So they're literally mimicking what a Copic marker actually looks like. And let's take a look at each one of these sides. Okay, so that's the thicker side. Yeah, so almost 101 comparison in that aspect. Come on, I can do this. Okay. Not bad. So I'm gonna go ahead real quick on this paper. And I know this is not watercolor, it's just marker. Oh yeah, this bad boy's dry. Again, so I've had some of these markers for a long time, but that just gives me like a point of reference. This is also a really light tone. Let me see. Do I have anything darker? Let me see. Are you out of ink? Let's find out. There we go. So this is the thick. There's the thin, and these are my Copics marker. Okay, so let's test out these colors right here. So this one looks like a black. It's more of a cool gray from what I'm seeing right here. So there's that. It doesn't tell you what's the exact color. This says just chisel tip. So that's all it says right there. So that's one color. I know what the purple looks like. Oh, that's nice and solid. So far it looks like it's operating like a regular marker. Okay, there's the That's the blue. Not too bad so far. I'm gonna move in a little bit closer. Oh, that's really light. That's actually matches the color of the marker, so that's actually very nice. As I mentioned before, sometimes these cheaper art supplies, so this is $5 versus like the Copics. I couldn't even tell you what the Copics are now because the tears are kind of all over the place. I'm not saying that to be inflammatory. I'm just a realistic I'm a realistic person, and a lot of things are being affected at this moment. And so yeah, so I know they cost way more. I know I bought these back in the day and they cost quite a bit of pennies. That's why I still have them to today. Again, I spent a lot of money on them and then I hardly ever use them. That's why I still have them. Okay, that's the green. Not so bad. Okay, we got that. Alright. Keep going here down the line. Ooh, that's a nice crispy yellow. That's like a sunflower yellow. Nice. The only thing that kind of makes me sad about these is that if you do use them, now I will have to tell you these are very light compared to the Copic markers. Like I can feel the weight on my Copic markers, but these are exceptionally light. So this kind of gives me the impression that you might get a few rounds out of these markers, but they might not last very long. So I will have to do several art projects to see how long these things last. So there might be a part 2 of this. Ooh, that's nice. It's supposed to be an orange. It's an orange. It's supposed to be a red. These are supposed to be your primaries. If that's supposed to be the red, that looks more like a red-orange. And if right here's some purple. It's like this really light pink. Okay. So if it's supposed to be your primary and secondary color set, so your primaries are your supposed to be blue, yellow, and red. However, this red is kind of questionable. That's more of an orange. I wish you could see it on my side. When I'm looking at it, looks red over here, but on my side it looks very it looks not red. So you got that part right there, and then you have your secondary colors that pretty much come in between those. But so far not bad. Again, keep in mind this is just $5. Okay, so this is set number 1. So far so good. So I want to check out these pastel colors. I'm going to set this one to the side real quick. Alright, and I want to check out this set over here. Okay, let's check out these pastels. Okay, so we have... Oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to be rude, my bad. So these look more watercolory. Oh yeah, that's definitely a pastel color. So that's like a pastel brown. So that's great for skin tone. Okay, like green. The only thing is I'm seeing... Oh yeah, this is great for skin tones as well. The only problem is you could see, so that's stroke 1, stroke 2, stroke 3. So after stroke 2, it's a little bit saturated right here. But that's something that I'll have to work to. But again, these are supposed to be watercolor markers. I'm assuming the behavior's a little bit different. You got a really light pink, like really light pink. And I'm assuming why the productions of these markers have come down so far. Because I remember when Copics came out, man, they were like mind blowing. Like they were like top of the line and everything. Like you just, yeah, like it was like the shizness. Okay. There's a darker pink. So the only thing that I'm not really quite seeing in this set, which is already kind of upsetting, is that there is no light pastel blue, but if you get both of the sets, you get a closer range of everything that you need. So if you do go to the store and you see both of them, grab both of them, because that will give you a really nice range versus only having one or the other. Okay, so for this next section, I need to pause for a moment. I want to fill up these pens real quick before we can move forward. Oh, I forgot. I need to do the little streak. Wow, you can hardly see that. So that's one. Let me pull these out of the way over here. That's 2. It's almost not worth it with these light tones to do the thinner line. It will come in handy if you're doing some really fine details. But yeah, this is definitely better for like skin tone if you're doing watercolor-ish. Nice blush tone. This looks like another... This looks more like a neutral gray versus the first gray. That gray is more more cooler than this one over here. Let's see what we got right here. Let's take that. There's that. Right here. Sorry about not talking. Okay, so now we have our full palette. All in all, it's not bad, but again, I will highly recommend, if you don't know what you want, go ahead and pick up both of these if you see them at the store. You're going to be needing them to get a full color range. So let me go ahead and fill up these markers real quick, these water brushes. They're technically, yeah, water brushes, and then we'll pick up where we left off. So give me a second. Whew. I ran back. Not only that I did my normal stuff, I also had to go downstairs and do a little bit of cooking. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I got my 3 brushes here. Okay, I want to go ahead and test out what each one of these can do. So I'm going to go by order. I'm going to pick something that you can vibrantly see. So I'm going to do the red first. Oops, excuse me. AKA red orange. Okay, and I'm gonna start with just the 3mm brush. Alright, so far, I mean, seems okay. There we go. Let's try that. Squeezed out the water out of it. Okay, so the question that I'm wondering, okay, so I know back when I was growing up with markers, you were able to, how do you say, you could use markers and then just any little bit of water. So I'm gonna move in a little bit closer, and you can see how it dilutes. However, you need to use a lot of water just to get it to this point. So just something to keep in mind. The other thing that I'm wondering is, and this is what I was looking for. So right here is where the edge of my marker was. I wanted to see if that also diluted. So you almost have to splash a lot of water in it and then move it around in order to get what you need. But this is great if you're doing really delicate lines. So that's actually not bad. Not bad at all. So that gives us more of a flowers. If you're doing more flowery type illustrations, that's actually not bad. So that's a 3mm brush. So I'll put 3mm. Okay, let's go ahead and move up to the next one. And again, I'm trying to use the same color so we could see the reaction. Now note that right now I'm using fresh, so I'm not letting it dry, I'm just doing it fresh. Okay, I'm going to pull this out. So it seems very similar. Okay, so it's dry, so I'm doing nothing. Sorry, my desk is angled. I'm trying to squeeze out some water. Okay. So this just allows you to do some bigger strokes, but again, I'm making sure that those original strokes that I made on there, and I think I just put in too much water, but alright, the brushing is okay. So this is good for like a filler. So if you have a white area to cover with a tone, this actually works out pretty good. Okay, so that is... And by the way, it takes a while to get used to water brushes, or it just takes a moment. So just like anything else, you're gonna have to do a lot of experimenting with these just so you could get the idea of what these brushes can do. So this is great for filler. So I'm gonna put this filler brush. This right here is fine lines. At least, and keep in mind, this is just my opinion. Y'all can do whatever you want. Okay, and I'm gonna do right here. And this is going to be the last one. It's a 5mm. I'm gonna squeeze it out here. Okay, now, and I did it out here, not on the paper, because I didn't want to oversaturate it, like I did for that one. Yes, family, I hear you. I'll get you some treats here in a little bit. What you doing, you bed? She just wants playtime. So this right here is more of a thicker version of the other one. So this is great if you're doing like hair. Trying to see what this would be great at. I just hate how long it is because it's kind of hard to manipulate. I tend to dabber more in shorter brushes, but that's still not too bad. It kind of reminds me of dry brushing without it being dry brushing. So if you don't know what dry brushing it is, just YouTube it. It's a pretty interesting technique. I personally like using dry brushing. It allows me more control over my watercolor. So there's that. Now, here's the next question that I have. I'm gonna go right here. This is a 5mm. So that's what that is. Alright, so these have been freshly laid out and they are now, you know, I added water to them. I want to see how the rest of these react. That's what I want to know. So I'm going to use this big brush real quick. And apparently it doesn't have to be fresh. And again, I'm just having some fun. I'm just testing. You could do your own test. Like I said, I'm just trying. So right here, I went through, and you can see how it's dragging some of the little pigment from before that. That's totally fine. So you definitely have to be constantly cleaning out your brush. If you can, keep like a brush cleaner for these. Yeah, meow, stop. Okay, so they don't. So what I'm saying here is that they don't have to be freshly laid down. Blending so far seems okay. See right here, that's like the bleed on the top. Alright, so not pretty, but you know what, like I said, normally you don't put both of these together, but I will have to say that's not bad. This is already dry, by the way, but I'm also using watercolor paper. So right out of the bat, immediately you could tell, hey, if you can immediately see that you can either do it freshly laid out, or you could just go ahead and do it with it already. How do you say, fresh laid out? So let me use one of my quick. Let me see if I have a quick sketch here. I do. I have a quick sketch here. So here's a quick flower drawing that I did a while ago. So I'm going to test this out. Alright, so these are little succulent plants you see out here. You see them like on everything out here in San Antonio, Texas. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this as my test subject. So I'm going to start with a little, really light green. Don't mind that. My cat goes through stages where she's like, pet me, but only with your eyes, and then she would just, she's all over the place. I love her though. And again, the way that you normally do these paintings is that you want to start with the light tone first and then move up from there. So this is going to be my filler. I'm gonna go ahead and use this first. I should have cleaned it, but that's okay though. And normally I have a reference in front of me, but I'm just kind of just doing this from memory. So, um, okay, so that's the lightest green. Let me try blending. Okay, so just like regular watercolor, you have to let it dry, so you can't just go in right behind it because you're gonna end up with this result right here. And you can see that it's starting to bulge out the paper. I said I'm just experimenting, so you know, it's okay if it looks like doo-doo. For this, I'm gonna switch to my regular brushes because I need something harder than this for blending. There we go. So wet brushes are okay, but I still like having a hard brush to manipulate where I want those, because this right here is harder, so it allows me to really move it around, versus these brushes right here, there's a lot of bend and leeway on the actual bristles themselves, so it doesn't allow you to manipulate it as well. But that's just me. So I'm only gonna do, since so I'm gonna use the hashing method, where, and I use something you use in pastels, where you don't really just lay it out thick. You just kind of hash out where you want the tones, and then you go ahead and then you overlay it, and then you blend it. And I used to be a street artist, a street painter. You know, the people that does those. The only way that I go is describe it to people so they understand is the people that do the 3D paintings on the floor at festivals. But I never did the 3D paintings. I did the classical paintings. So I got to work with pastels for close to a decade. And I miss it, but unfortunately my spine can no longer take 2 days on the concrete anymore, of just kind of sitting there and working on a piece of art. I'm aging to perfection. But if you see a local chalk festival, know that they are very welcoming. Unless it's like a festival of the masters, and even then they still have like intermediate, like, you know, for like, and people that are just starting out. But it's a really welcoming community. So make sure that you want to learn, participate, go ahead and do that. And then obviously, you know, if the artist tells you, hey, I'd love to talk to you but I can't, you know, don't be offended, because you literally have you're in a time limit to get those paintings done. So I used to do a 10-foot by 10-foot, and towards the end I got fast enough that I could do it about in a day and a half if I didn't stop. But a lot of artists, especially doing a lot of fine details, they just don't have that luxury to be able to stop and talk. So, you know, don't take it personally and say, hey, I can't talk, because, you know, it is a lot. It's a lot in your body. Okay, so we got that. So that's like a good base. I'm going to switch to just regular water. Keep a little water over here. This allows me to move it better. So the brushes are okay, but not a fan. I'll find a use for them, or maybe I just need to build my technique with them a little bit more. Yes, Meow Meow, I see you. I swear I'm not ignoring you, Meow Meow. Whoever said cats are they're not needy and they're antisocial, they've never owned a cat. They are very social creatures and they want your attention. And if you're not giving it to them, they will let you know. Like, my white cat is bouncing all over the background. Y'all can't see it. But she ain't having it for once. So here's what's gonna happen. The second I stop filming the camera, I'm gonna give her attention, she's gonna scurry off. Happens every time. It's hilarious. I'm like, okay, I see you. I see what you're doing there. Okay, so we got a pretty good base going on there now. Most of these succulents tend to have yellow tones to them, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a nice overlay of yellow. They also have a slight overlay of some reds, but it's very, 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 very delicate. And notice I'm not too serious on my strokes. I'm just gonna give it some yellow tones and then I'm gonna blend it in. And just blending those tones in. And this is something you learn from observation. Like I said, I do a lot of watercolor with a lot of plants on my own time. And I've studied for the last couple of years since I've been in Texas. I love succulents. I think they're beautiful. They're very weather resistant. I grew up with flowers, but mainly the tropics. I did not grow up in a desert environment like Texas before. So I'm getting kind of exposed to a whole new different type of plant. And succulents are very hard to keep in a very humid tropical environment because it's humid and it rains all the time. And what do succulents do not like? A lot of water. So, but I've come to learn that they come in a really wide variety. It's kind of like orchids. Orchids are the same way, and they come in a wide variety in species. And people like crossbreed them. It's like Pokemon, but with plants. So every time you go to the store, if you see a variant that you like, pick it up because there's a chance you might not see it again. And and you'll realize that there's common variants. You'll see them over and over again. But you've perused the gardening center like I do all the time. And I mostly do it to grab some reference pictures and just kind of give me a break away from the computer. After a while, you start picking up which ones are the common variants and which ones are not. Alright, so far not so bad. I might need a little bit of that darker green back here because that seems to be more in the shade. Okay, so far not so bad. The only problem is I'm mixing this. You can see there's a little texture getting pulled up. Okay, so now from here, what I want to do, I want to start adding some reds. Now know that it is not a direct red. So you have like the primary colors and then the complementary colors, and red and green tend to be complementary. They're complementary to each other. So when you do fine arts, you get to do the color wheel and all that fun stuff. But when you actually get to study a lot of shading, especially like in skin tones, especially because of the blood, you'll see that even though something will look a particular way, like things that are red will have a little bit of green in the shading, and then things that are green will have a little bit of red in the shading. And if that sounds crazy, don't mind me, but there are plenty of artists online that explain color theory. Maybe someday I'll do color theory. I used to teach it. But it's something that it's an observation that you just have to go out there and just look at it. It's something that you just learn from practice. So you'll see in greens, reds, and browns. You can see I'm oversaturating the paper. This is some thick watercolor paper, and I'm still having to oversaturate it. Now, I could use a paper towel and then try to lift some of the color. However, what ends up happening is it starts picking up some of the other pigment as well, and I don't want it to do that. So right now what I'm trying to do is just put a lot of water on it and then just kind of try to push the pigment around a little bit. Okay, so it's starting to give it some weight and some shading in here. Let's see. So we need some brown tones, but I don't want heavy brown tones. So I'm gonna use this kind of peach tone. Just kind of provide some shading. You gotta be gentle, because if you go too hard, notice how I went too hard on that, and it started kind of rolling up. Right now I'm just trying to give it some depth. And right now I'm just kind of establishing the light as I'm going through. I should have done that beforehand, but eh. Okay, so right here. You can see I'm trying to give some of these separation. I'm trying to give it good, but this is very, 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 very saturated. Okay, so I'm gonna, so the good part is I can go kind of back and forth on this. So far this is looking great. And I'm gonna do a little dry brushing where I dip my brush in the water, and then I'm just gonna dab over it. Just kind of let the water do its thing. That's what I want, a really nice loose, kind of loose look to this. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back in with my little darker green. God, I hope I don't mess this up. In some of these shaded areas. So I have to be very, very oof, it's a little too dark, and that's okay though. Again, we're testing these. That's the point of this. That might have been a little too dark, but let's see if we can salvage it a little bit. And that's the thing though, you cannot, I mean, there's no control Z in this environment. You just gotta learn to go for it. And if you messed it up, it's not the end of the world. You just have to start all over again. And then you just make note of it, and then you start again. Not a big deal. Literally not a big deal at all. Okay. So we got that. I'll leave that alone for a minute. So this needs to dry, because that's the other problem right now. It's very saturated, so I can't really build upon it. So I'm going to put a pause here real quick, and I'm going to try to dry this out with a hair dryer, and then come back in. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So normally when I do watercolor, I normally have a hair dryer. However, my hair dryer finally kicked the bucket and went to heaven. So this is what I got left. Okay, so that allowed me to kind of let this dry out a little bit. So you can always grab it, flip it back and forth for 15 minutes, and it pretty much does the same thing. Now what I want to do is try to define some of these edges a little bit. And you kind of have to be careful when you're defining some edges, because what it tends to do, it actually flattens the image a little bit. So, but it is necessary for you to get those divisions between some of these areas, because otherwise you could see this kind of blending in there, but you can see adding some of that definition makes it a little bit, it adds to it. And since these are watercolor markers, I have to treat it like ink, because the second it touches, notice how it's spreading. So I gotta be really careful with this. Okay. no, not all the lines have to be that bright orange. It could be some of the flesh tone too. So that's showing a little bit more of that division. And I'm sorry, this seems to have been turned into me just kind of doing a quick sketch, but that's okay. But I just kind of want to show you guys some of my process when I do some of these paintings. So I'm using, these are the same $5 markers from Five Below. So you can do some really pretty things. And this is what I love about succulents. Succulents have a lot of tones, a lot of beautiful tones in them. A lot of browns, a lot of greens, a lot of yellows. So right now I'm trying to make each one of these leaves kind of pop out a little bit. There we go, so we cut that right there. And if I do any watercolor, I'm going to be really gentle with it. And it's just for me to soften out the line a little bit, so it's not very harsh. Ooh, man, absolutely. And I'm still trying to scrape. Try to be careful not to rip it out. And normally what I do with these, I do the watercolor, and then on top of that I'll do like color pencil. But this time around I want to stick to just these markers. Now, the hardest part is to get a really light line, an implied line back here. So you use the brush itself to remove some of the pigment to get something close to white. So it's kind of like using water to erase. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So notice right here, I just keep going over it till I get close to a white tone on there to make that stand out. So it's just me removing some of the pigment. Now, when you're doing regular watercolor, it seems a little bit easier, but this one, it seems to be a little bit harder to do. That's what I'm starting to notice right here. Because this is markers, not actual. It's not actual pigment that you're moving. Like, it is pigment, but it's a different type of pigment. So normally a watercolor can simply just go in with a brush and easily remove some of the pigment with either a paper towel. But I seem to be finding it a little bit more challenging in this set right here. And it's just me doing a little bit of cleanup. Okay, so the other thing that I want to do is add a little bit of a flooring here, because a lot of these tend to be in more of a, so, okay, I want to add, okay, so I'm going to start with the gray, so I'm going to go with the neutral gray. No, that's not the gray. Where is, actually it is a gray, it's a lighter gray, so this is very pastel-y, so this should work. So this right here is giving it a little bit of weight, so it's not just floating out in the void. So notice that I'm picking up on the shadow there. Okay, that right there. This might require a couple layers. Okay, so that seems kind of meh. We could give it more tone because remember this is just a flat tone there. So let's go ahead and grab, where did that peachy color go? Did I lose a marker? Nope, it's over here. Alright. Because you want to make sure you carry all those tones across the board so they're not just completely locked in. So this way your eye moves around. And this is supposed to be dirt anyway. And again, this is not perfect. You can see I accidentally oversaturated again. It seems to be very easy to do with this, so I'm not... And by the way, this is by no means the professional way to do watercolor. Watercolor is a whole different animal. You get the paper wet and then you tape it out to a board to stretch it out and then you paint it on the board. It is quite a bit of a process. So I'm just kind of just doing this guerrilla style just so I can have something to show you guys as I'm using these markers. But actual professional watercolor, it is quite a bit of a process. Okay, just trying to give it some weight right there. Okay, let's see. What do I want to use? Let's go ahead and try to use some of these. And here's the best part, like I said, I don't care if I screw this up. I am just relaxed and just adding colors and just kind of building them up. And I expect this to look pretty. I just want to do a quick test. This is a quick test. So now we have the nice deep tone reds in there. Alright, so I gotta fan this out again because it's getting saturated, so give me a second. Alright, so I already let it dry for a little bit. Let's go ahead and add some of these greens because I want to create a really nice shadow in here. Okay, so I'm gonna use the finer tip. So this is the darker green. Notice how I don't use black. Anybody that done fine arts would tell you you get smacked in the hand if you use black when you're doing traditional media. But I'm only going to use this in the tones closest to the plant because I want to give it the option. First of all, I want to carry these greens out here and I want it to be the shadow, but I don't want it to be a black shadow. I want it to be natural tones, natural earthy tones. Try to make sure it doesn't make it in there. Again, is this pretty? Absolutely not. Am I having fun? Yes. And at the end of the day, that is what really matters. So what does it say? Draw like nobody's watching and then draw like people are, you know, and that's the thing. People accidentally petrify themselves when they're learning art because they are so self-judgmental. Just do something, just paint, just start, just do it, like the old Nike commercial, just do it. Just do it. Don't worry what other people will say. Just do it, and do it for yourself, man. Like, just do it for yourself. You know, don't worry about what other people will say or think. Got a little too much green. And that's okay. Have you ever seen succulents? It's not a consistent color across the board. There's different tones to it. Wow. Alright, doesn't look too bad. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. I do want to add a little bit of blue. I have the signature where I love to use just kind of light blue as a contrast. It's just the way that I like to flow. So I'm just gonna do this. A couple streaks of that back there. And then for this, I am gonna be using the big old brush. And it's very faint, but I just always like to use the blue. Don't know why. It's just a personal thing that I like to do. So it gives it like, it's not just out there floating in space. Just gives it some nice, like, hey, it's inside an environment, and we're just kind of peeking, like, just kind of focusing on this one particular spot on the ground. Okay, this needs to dry a little more again, so let me dry it out a little bit. Let it dry. Alright, so I already let it dry for a little bit. Let's go ahead and add some of these greens, because I want to create a really nice shadow in here. Okay, so I'm going to use the finer tip. So this is the darker green. Notice how I don't use black. Anybody that done fine arts would tell you you get smacked in the hand if you use black when you're doing traditional media. But I'm only going to use this in the tones closest to the plant, because I want to give it the option. First of all, I want to carry these greens out here, and I want it to be the shadow, but I don't want it to be a black shadow. I want it to be natural tones, natural earthy tones. Trying to make sure it doesn't make it in there. Again, is this pretty? Absolutely not. Am I having fun? Yes. And at the end of the day, that is what really matters. So what does it say? Draw like nobody's watching, and then draw like people are, you know. And that's the thing, people accidentally petrify themselves when they're learning art because they are so self-judgmental. Just do something, just paint, just start, just do it, like the old Nike commercial. Just do it, just do it. Don't worry what other people will say. Just do it, and do it for yourself, man. Like, just do it for yourself, you know. Don't worry about what other people will say or think. Got a little too much green. And that's okay. Have you ever seen succulents? It's not a consistent color across the board. There's different tones to it. Wow. Alright, doesn't look too bad. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. I do want to add a little bit of blue. I have the signature where I love to use just kind of light blue as a contrast. It's just the way that I like to flow. So I'm just gonna do this. A couple of streaks of that back there. And then for this, I am gonna be using the big old brush. And it's very faint, but I just always like to use the blue. Don't know why. It's just a personal thing that I like to do. So it gives it like, it's not just out there floating in space. Just gives it some nice, like, hey, it's inside an environment, and we're just kind of peeking, like, just kind of focusing on this one particular spot on the ground. Okay, this needs to dry a little more again, so let me dry it out a little bit. Let it dry. Okay, so I let it dry a little bit, and right now I'm at the point where it's maximum color saturation. So what I would like to do is go ahead, go with my pencil, and then just do one more defining, but this is just going to be just with the pencil. And I might have to do this a little bit more once it dries. You can see right there it's still pretty wet. It's a really light line. because sometimes you cannot get that separation with the watercolor. And again, this is just me doing mixed media, guys. Mostly, like I said, I'm mostly using these watercolor pencils, but me myself, I mostly use mixed media. That's my jam. That's what I like to do. Okay, I'm trying to be really careful not to overdo it. Just a really tiny little clean line. See right there, really nice and divided, really simple. Alright, going from there. It says, sorry I'm not talking much, I'm just trying to concentrate. So we got that right there, then we got this in here. Okay, really nice. It's just enough to kind of break it out, but it's not too much that is completely overwhelming. A lot of these are implied lines, so it's just enough to just provide that division. There we go. That doesn't look too bad. I like how it's still kind of loose in certain areas, and it's nice. It's nice and it's still kind of nice and tight in other areas. I've always liked that loose feeling, but I like it when it's loose, but there's still some structure to it. And again, that's just a personal, that's just a personal preference. Everybody's got their own style. Everybody's got their own look. I would suggest just to experiment, man. Just go out there. Don't be afraid. And yeah, but anyway. So back to business. This is a long one. I'm sorry, guys. What do I think of these markers? Okay. I've said this before. I've had a lot of students where they're like, well, I don't have these fancy tools, so because I don't have these fancy tools, I cannot draw. Actually, guys, give me 1 second. Let me clean this area up a little bit. I'll be back. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to organize my thoughts a little bit. Alright, so what is my honest opinion on these markers? Technically it's $10. In order to get the whole thing, you're gonna have to buy both of them, so that way you have a really nice spectrum of markers that you need. The watercolor brush markers, this is something that you have to train. You can have the best watercolor brush marker, but it's a particular technique that you have to develop. So if you don't get it right out of the bat, that's totally fine. Forgive yourself. It does take a moment to get used to that. As for the palette, for $10, that is absolutely not bad. My one concern is that they do feel a little light. So I don't know how long these will last you. I don't know if this will last you 1 or 2 projects, or they'll last you a year. Not a clue, because again, I just kind of bought them, experimented them. I also don't know how long they'll last you if you don't use them, because that's the other thing with a lot of these liquid type medium. that if you don't use them, they tend to dry up, and then you just out the money that you put into it. So I would suggest, if this is something that you want to use, you're just not buying it to stick it out somewhere, just like stick it into a drawer. Yeah, just test them out, and if you've had these for a while, just let me know, because these were a Five Below. You can't beat that. And as far as some tracking here, I'm trying to see if there's a brand. So right here it says this product. Let me see. I'm trying to see what the name is. Just the name of a company. I don't think this is the name of a company. This is just generic random watercolor markers, because even the markers are marked. So let's see. Distributed. So this is a distributor, but I don't see a name of a company. Yeah. There's no name of a color. It's not like Prismacolors where it's predominant, but that's okay. That's why they're cheap. You're not paying for the brand. But all in all, you know, it's got a decent color range. Watercolor, so it's difficult to deal with. For $5, you're getting at least, you know, you're talking about 13 markers in total. So 10 count and then 3. So if you buy 2 of these, you're getting 6 brush pens and, you know, 20 markers. That right there is a steal. Can you do some nice artwork with it? I just proved that you can. So no, the quality of your supplies doesn't dictate the fact whether you can or cannot do good artwork. Now there's time that's like really bad, like rose art. I'll be forever hung up on rose art. Sorry guys. But all in all, you know, you guys saw me from beginning to end just do this really quick illustration, and that was fun. That was fun. It was different. It does maneuver a little different than traditional watercolor, because like I said, normally when you do like the cakes, or you do like the little watercolor, the little tubes that you brush out, it's normally you put water on it and it spreads the molecules and you go from there. But this one is a liquid format, so it behaves a little bit different. But you know, if you have some of your techniques down, that is still not bad. You can still kind of figure out and make something great out of it. So all in all, like I said, I don't have a professional brand to compare it with, but I'm just gonna give it a nice solid 5. It's $10. I managed to goof around with it. I got a good range of tones from it. You know, some of it was really hard to manipulate, but I mean, it's $10. You can't beat that. So I'm actually pretty happy I picked up the set. So this is pretty dope. So but anyway, guys, I hope you guys like this content. Please like and subscribe. I'm sorry I went off a little long, but I just kind of want to show you what you can make with this. And this was just a little tiny piece. This is just like one of my speed paintings. Some of my watercolor paintings take me 2 or 3 days to do, but this is just like a quickie just for presentation's sake. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you guys next time.